Hi, I'm Susan Rutledge, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make all of these complex looking but easy to make patterns using Adobe Illustrator's Pattern Maker. I'll show you how to make these patterns, how to edit them, how to copy them, how to color them, and even how to resize them. So let's move to a blank document and I'm going to get started. The first thing I'll do is grab the rectangle tool and I'm going to click on the artboard to open the dialog box, and I'll type in 1.5 inches for the width, tab down, type in 1.5 inches for the height, and say OK. I'm going to increase the stroke weight to 3 points and remove the fill color. And then with my square selected, I'll go up to Object, down to Path, over and down to Offset Path. I'll change the offset value to 0.2 inches and say OK. Illustrator now has the offset square selected. I'll go back up to Object, Path, Offset path again, and Illustrator remembers the value I typed in previously, so all I have to do is say OK, and I'll do that 2 more times. Object, Path, Offset path, OK, and Object, Path, Offset path, OK. Let me grab the selection tool and then I'll select all 5 of my squares. I'm going to group them. Object, Group, and then I want to rotate these. We'll get the rotate tool from the left toolbar or keyboard shortcut R, and I'm going to hold the shift key down as I drag because I want to constrain the movement to 45 degrees. When I see 45 degrees, I'm going to release my mouse, and that's all we have to do for the first design. I'll move it up out of the way, but leaving it selected. I'm going to go up to Object, down to Pattern, and click on Make. Now, the first time you click on Make, in addition to getting the Pattern Options dialog box and the Swatches panel, you're going to get a notification box that tells you Illustrator has now added your design to the swatches panel, and here it is right here. It's also going to tell you that any changes you make basically using the pattern options dialog box, those changes are going to be reflected in this swatch right here. Now you can either just close that notification box, or you can click on the little box that says don't show me this again. That's what I've done, and that's why it doesn't pop up every time for me. Now the first thing I'm going to do is grab the Swatches tab and drag and drop it next to the Layers tab to get that out of the way. And then we're going to make a change here in the Pattern Options dialog box. Right now we have the tile type set to grid. There's a pull down menu, and I could choose brick by row, brick by column, hex by column, or hex by row. And you can use any of these, and I suggest you play around with them as you're experimenting and learning how to use the pattern process. But I'm going to use the brick by row. The first thing I'll do is change the width. So we're going to move it just a little further apart, and then I'll highlight the height, and we're going to move it a little closer until it looks like the space is even around all of these, and I'm going to leave it like that and close, first of all, the Pattern Options dialog box, and then I'll come up to this little gray bar and click on the gray arrow, which allows me to exit out of the pattern editing mode. Nothing happens here with the original, but I look over at the swatches panel and here's the pattern which I created, and this is what it's going to look like. Now I'll create this swatch using the exact same design. So we'll select the design, go back up to Object, down to Pattern, and choose Make. And in the swatches panel, this looks like what we started out with a minute ago, but And we're going to make a few changes here. I'm going to leave the tile type set on grid for this one, but I'll select the width. And what I want is for the four corners of my outside square to overlap each of the squares around it and intersect with the inside corners. We'll first start drawing down the width, and I'll slide with my mouse until I get the design right where I want it, and see these are intersecting perfectly. Now we're going to do the same thing with the height. I'll select it, and we're going to move until they intersect with those corners. And that's all we're going to do to change this design. And we will click on the gray arrow to exit out of that. And here is our next design, which is this one right here. Now I don't have to do just black and white. I can create the exact same design as this, but add color. So let's do that next. I could change the color here in the original design and then go up Object, Pattern, Make, or I can double click on the swatch I just want to make a modification on, and Illustrator is going to open it up. Now we know that if I make the changes here, Illustrator is going to make them in the swatches panel, and I'll lose this swatch, which I don't want to do. So I'm going to come up here to this gray bar, and I'm going to click Save a Copy. I'll let Illustrator name it. It just puts them in order, new pattern 3, 4, 5, and so on. I'm going to click OK. And what I'm going to do is edit the strokes inside this little square. I can't even access anything outside of the square. Illustrator is going to make those changes based upon what I do here in the center square. So I'm going to click right here on this inside square. Now if I come over to the swatches panel and I click on a color now, Illustrator isn't going to change the stroke, it's going to change the fill, and that's because the fill is active right now. Here on the left toolbar, this is the fill icon, and it sits on top of the stroke icon. So I need to click on the stroke to put it on top, and now I'll be changing the stroke and not the fill. So if you have trouble changing the stroke or the fill, be sure and look over at the left toolbar and make sure that you have the right icon selected. All right, for the first one, we'll do pink and see how Illustrator is changing all the rest of the pattern as well. I'll select the second one, and we're going to do green. And the third one, let's do purple. The fourth one, I'm going to do blue. And this last one, I'm going to do orange, and close the swatches panel. And if I want to make other changes, let's say I want the lines to be a little bolder, I can select all of the lines and come up to the properties panel, and let's increase the stroke size to 4 points, and that makes it a little bolder. Let's go back to the swatches panel. I don't see any change reflected yet, but when I click on the gray arrow, we see the change reflected in the swatches panel, and it's going to look just like this. Next, we're going to work with a circle to make a design. So we'll come back over here and get the ellipse tool. I'll click on the artboard, and we'll make our ellipse, first of all, a 1/2 inch, and say OK. We're going to go back to the properties panel, change the color to black, and it's at 3 points. This time I'm going to give it a white fill, and then we'll come up to Object, down to Path, over and down to Offset Path. I'm going to leave the setting at 0.2 inches and say OK. And we're going to do what we did with our square. We're going to make 5 circles total. So there's 3, Object, Path, Offset Path, OK, and one more. I'll grab the selection tool. Now I'll group these, Object, Group, and then we'll select this and go Object, Pattern Make. Now for this design, we're going to use the brick by row as well. We're going to do something a little different. We're going to overlap these, but we're going to overlap and even cover some of these designs. Now I want to come down to the overlap, and the default setting is for the first and the third icon to be selected. I'm going to click on the second one, which is right in front, and the fourth one, which is bottom in front. And then I'm going to move these a little closer in width, and we may play with that in a minute. And I'm going to move them closer in height. That looks perfect. So we're going to leave it like that and close out of the pattern options and close out of the editing mode. Here in the swatches panel, we see our pattern, and it looks just like this fourth pattern right here. That's looking great. Let's see how we do the diamond shape. I'm going to come back over, move the circle out of the way, and for this design, I'm going to hold down the Option key and drag out a copy of the previous design we've used. I'm going to ungroup it, Object, Ungroup, and I'm going to select these outer two squares and delete them. Select the remaining three and give them a white fill. And did you see what happened? I don't have the right icon selected, so we want to go back to a black stroke, click on the fill icon, and then we can give this a white fill and close that out. And then with this selected, I'm going to go up to Object, Pattern, Make. Again, I'm going to use the brick by row, and I'm going to first change the width. Let's go ahead and change the overlap back to the second and fourth as well. We're going to do a lot of overlapping on this one. Now this is a little too close. I don't want this tight space in here. I want everything to look uniform. So we'll come back just a little bit, and that's too much. So I may not be able to do this with my mouse. I'm going to try just typing in 0.4 and then click here. That's a little tight. So 0.42, and that looks perfect. Now notice I've covered up several rows of the design to get this look, but I think I'm going to be happy with this. So I'll close the pattern options, click on the gray arrow, and here's our swatch, and I'm really happy with that. But what if I wanted to add a fill color to a design that I had created? I want to keep the original white and black, but I'm going to double click here and select this area. I want to make sure that the color fill icon is selected. I'll go to the swatches panel, and I'm going to click on this green. And when I apply the green to the area that is selected, Illustrator applies the green to the entire swatch. So we'll close out everything else and look at the swatches panel. And we have a green swatch, but I lost my original black and white, and I wanted to keep that. Well, let me show you how to get it back. I'm going to double click on the green, and I'm going to click Save a Copy. I'm going to select this area again, come back over and click white, and Illustrator changes everything to a white fill again. We'll close this out, and now I have the original white and I have the green. So if you're wanting to make a number of swatches that are the same except different colors, be sure when you click on the swatch to make a copy and don't make the changes to the original. All right, last one that we're going to make. I'm going to just go ahead and use this design, which we've been using previously, and I've got to ungroup it first. Object, Ungroup, and then let's switch to the Color Fill icon. And I'm going to select the first square, go to the Swatches panel here, and click on this light gray, then select the next square, go to the next gray, the next square, the next gray, and so on. Here's the fourth one, and here is the fifth one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'll select the design, and we're going to go to Object, Pattern, Make. It already is looking great, but we're going to change the tile type to brick by row. We're going to change these to where they're pretty close together, and close this, close the editing mode, and here is our pattern. Now we can hide all of these. I'm not going to delete them quite yet, so we'll just hide the different layers, and then I'll get the rectangle tool and let's just drag out a square. Then I'll hold the Option key down so I can make a copy, and then Command D to duplicate that, and then back to the Option key to make some copies, and one last piece here. And then we'll go to the Swatches panel, and let's look at what we have created. So here is our first design. It looks too large for the square, so I'll go to Object, Transform, Scale, and that's not what I wanted to do. I do want a uniform scale, but I don't want to transform the object, only the pattern. So I'll uncheck Transform Objects, and now let's make a change to the scale, and we'll come down to 41%, and that looks much better. So I'm going to say OK. Then for the next design, here's our pattern, and it looks a little large as well. So back up to Object, Transform, Scale, and I think I can go a little bigger with this one. So let's try this design here. That looks good. Now we'll try the one with the color, and with that extra point on the weight, I like that a lot. I could make it a little smaller. Object, Transform, Scale, and let's increase that just a little bit. And that looks really nice. Okay, now let's try the next one. This was our circle, and I'm going to make the circles a little smaller. Object, Transform, Scale. 67% looks good. I'm going to leave it there and come to the next design. And we're going to go with the diagonals. Let's change the size. Object, Transform, Scale. 67% kind of looks like the magic number. I'll say OK. And then we'll try the green. Object, Transform, Scale. OK. And finally, our pretty design, and I am going to change the size here. Object, Scale, and let's make it even a little smaller than that. There we go, and okay. And I think these look really nice. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video and learned some things about creating these patterns in Adobe Illustrator. This is just one of the many ways to create patterns, but it's very useful and easy to use. I do want to invite you to subscribe to my channel and click the notification bell so you don't miss any of my future tutorials, and I'm going to look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye now.